Conversations for change. Because the world is ready. I am thrilled to invite my friend Csilla to Conversations for Change this week to have a conversation about this whole thing we call awakening. Csilla, it's lovely to have you here.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So to begin, I know a little of your story. We've had some conversations, but I really wanted to give you room to just tell your story the way you would tell your story rather than me trying to prompt things out of you, because it's such a unique and exquisite story. So I just want to give you the floor.
Thank you so much. Okay, so my awakening, of course, when I'm thinking back now in hindsight, I can see that certain events were happening even when I was younger. But there is a huge shift that was happening. I can say two major times. So one, I had a Kundalini rising experience at the end of 2019. And then I had a second one in October 30th, 2022. Very precise time. And the second one lasted for quite a while. So it was rising, falling, about for 3 years on. So let me look back a little bit for the first one, how the first one was happening. At the time, I was working for a program. I'm working as a therapist. And I had a client. Initially, I was connected with him. He was in my group therapy sessions, and he had another clinician initially. And how we connected is not just the group, but something was similar. I don't know if you have heard about a program by Jose Silva. It was called
Yes.
Mind Control Program. I was around the beginning of my 20s when I initially heard about this program, and when I went, it was very much how I looking at back. It was very similar to manifestation practices now, and this was the very first time I was introduced to meditation, and I really liked it. And I was doing that program every day religiously, and I was doing manifestation, and things were starting to happening. One of the goal that I set down for myself is to somehow come to United States. And when that was starting to unfold, and I came here to live here, I was 27 years old at the time. Somehow, Jose Silva's meditation fell off because life got in the way, and my focus went on something else. And when I met with this client, he was mentioning that he was also introduced to meditation through this program. So we were connected on that level.
And now just let me make sure I'm understanding. So your connection to Jose Silva's material was in your 20s.
Yes.
And when you met this client, this was now many years later. This was
correct
in 2019. But the commonality that you had was the Silva mind control program.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And at one point, his counselor left, and he actually became my client. So I'm not just working with him in group sessions, but also on one-on-one. And one of the part that he was really, really struggling is the abandonment by his mother. At that time, he was already 56 years old and he was struggling. He really, really wanted to forgive his mother, but he didn't know how. So at one point, and here is where everything shifted for me, because a lot of times clients come for therapy and they feel that we as therapists changing their lives, but they have no idea how much inspiration we are receiving just by watching their transformation. It's amazing to see. And at one point, there was this shift for this client. After 56 years, he was able to forgive his mother. So he came to my office, and he was like a complete changed person. His whole demeanor changed. And that was so inspiring for me. Um, I wanted to tap into that energetics, right? Because we all have traumas. And at the time, I was noticing that I was under a lot of stress. And how stress shows up for me is I have difficulty sleeping. Like I go on for days not sleeping or sleeping an hour here, an hour there. And it reminded me, well, if he could make such a huge change, why can't I do any change? Right. And because we connected on Jose Silva's meditation, I decided I'm going to do recap and revisit Jose Silva's meditations. If nothing else, at least I will be able to sleep well at night. So that was my goal.
Uh-huh.
So I'm using my little phone and I'm on YouTube at nighttime listening to his meditations to aid me sleeping. And it's really took me about a week where I was already able to sleep. Now, with sleeping troubles, you have one night where you're not being able to sleep well, and the whole rest of the day is being affected. So
Mhm.
I saw such a difference in my mood, in my energy level, just by that 1 week of meditation. And you know how YouTube is when you're typing, searching for meditation, it gives you other stuff
Yes, yes, it
and
always has an idea of what you're watching.
algorithms. So, what it showed me is you familiar with Joe Dispenza's work. And he has these meditations where he's using a very specific breath work. And the breath work leads to, at the time, I didn't really know, but it leads to a Kundalini rising experience. He just calls it differently. I don't even know what he calls it. And I started to listen to his meditation. And because it gave me so much energy and my mood shifted so much, so I was not only listening to this type of information like at nighttime, also during the day. So when I wake up, I'm doing my meditation, and the meditation lasted longer and longer. At one point it was an hour in the morning, an hour at night. I felt recharged, nothing was bothering me. And then his information, how he merges science with spirituality, was really resonating with me. And then again, YouTube is bringing me other algorithms, and somehow this Kundalini information came into my picture in my field. And I'm learning about Kundalini rising and how people are talking about it. I got so excited. And I actually wanted to have a rising experience, even though people give warnings about it. And it's very interesting because the moment I actually started to learn about Kundalini rising experiences, and people are always talking about sometimes it is spontaneous, sometimes some yogics are working decades on these meditations before they have arising. For me, it took me 3 months. The moment I had the information, 3 months later, one of these Joe Dispenza, the meditation is called Four Pathways. It's about an hour long meditation. Um, and I actually combined it with another breath work. It's called the Bhastrika breath work, or some people call it the dragon's breath. And
Oh,
I did 10 rounds of this breath work before the meditation. And it was interesting because, so I was doing this for a couple of weeks by then. And it was interesting because around the seventh round of this breath work, I started to feel very weird. I started to feel numbness and tingling around my whole skin. And at one point, and my lips started to disappear. And at one point, I started to feel that my skin disappears and I was one with the air. Like my, I don't even know what to call it. My definition between myself, my body, and the air disappeared. I became one with it. It usually happened around the seventh round. And then on the 10th, I was going into Joe Dispenza meditation. And he's also starting the meditation with that specific breath work. The two are very similar. And then on this specific day, I knew something was different because on the third round, I was already feeling my lips disappearing, my skin was disappearing, but I continued because for me, it was always 7 round and then move on to Joe Dispenza. But this time it was very early. So after maybe the sixth and seven I went on to Joe Dispenza, and then he starts with the breathing. And then at one point, I'm feeling the heat coming up. And then as the heat is rising, I started to feel the energetic moving. What is Kundalini rising? They often depict it as a snake coiled up at the base of the spine. And then when the right circumstances are present, it unleashes and the energetic rise up on the spine. And then when it reaches the crown chakra is when magic happens. This is how what I knew about it.
right. Okay.
So I'm sitting on the chair, and then as the energetic rising up, it became extremely volatile. So much so, and I'm holding onto the chair. I'm like, oh my God, what will happen? It became so volatile. At one point, I actually had a thought, I'm gonna actually fall off this chair. It was that volatile.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm not so sure if fear was there, but it was a resistance. And
Sure.
later on, I knew that after it broke through, I actually recognized that there was a blockage in the solar plexus, and I will explain what was it. So, and at one point, the chair is moving. I'm like, I'm gonna fall off this chair. I even made a mental note during the process. I'm like, okay, never again meditate on the chair. I'm gonna meditate on a bed or on the floor. Um, and then at one point, I heard the voice saying, relax, just relax, let go. So I'm like, okay, I let go. And the moment I let go, the energy was able to shoot up to my crown. And the information that was coming, it was absolutely wonderful. Because the blockage was in the solar plexus. Solar plexus is the sun, and the sun is a star. And this is your I am present. It's your personality, is who you are. And the information that came, why was there a blockage? And I actually saw a scene from a movie that I saw long time ago. It's actually a children's movie. And the children's movie is about a star fell out of the sky. It was a woman, right? Fell out of the sky, and there were three witches on Earth that were looking for this star, this woman who fell out of the sky. Why? Because if they are able to gain her energy, they are becoming young. So the whole movie was about chasing this star who fell out of the sky. And there was this hero who was protecting her. And throughout the whole time, they are chasing this star woman. And in the last scene, the man who was trying to protect her in the last scene, the witches were closing in. And in the last scene, she was whispering into his ear because he was like giving up. He's like, I don't know what to do. And she said, relax, it is my turn now. And she asked him, what stars do best? And he said, I don't know what. And she said, they shine. And she started to shine. And that shine killed the witch. That was the image that I saw from that movie. I didn't even remember this movie. And then the information came. I immediately went down into the ground and I was one with the smallest cell of that tree and also the sun. So almost like earth and the sun just married there. And the information that I was receiving, I had a blockage in my solar plexus because I refused to accept my name. My name, Chilla, was only my mom only called me Chilla when I was in trouble. any any other time she was calling me in a nickname. And then also in my country, when I come from, when you give an oral presentation, like when you're giving tests, we had to give oral presentation as part of our examination. And every time they called out my name, I knew I was in trouble because I have to give an oral presentation. So the name Chilla, the sound ch was so harsh for me. So when I'm hearing Chilla, I was associating that name with either I'm in trouble or I have to give a test. So it was shocking to hear the word Chilla. Now, guess what Chilla means in Hungarian, my language?
I have no idea.
It
Star.
means
Oh
star.
my God.
It means star. So when I realized that that was the blockage in my solar plexus, and the moment I realized that I,
Formed.
yes, yes, it's like a reborn. I accepted the name has a meaning and a very specific frequency. If you don't accept or reject that frequency, how can you take upon the reason you came here? So, and everything opened up. My heart opened up, right? Because my solar plexus is not clear. My heart opened up. I felt the love, even for the process of choosing this name, which I rejected for all my life. And then more information came, right? So
Yeah.
it felt to me that I also heard my higher self, my spirit guides were saying, Now you can step into your purpose because
Right.
I reclaim my name and my name is Star. So now it also made sense why that image from the movie came in. What stars do best? They shine. So I
Yeah.
couldn't shine until I accept that part of me. So that was amazing. And also, what was so amazing about it is this first Kundalini rising happened the end of 2019. So, and we know what happened 2020. 3 months later, there was a shutdown.
Right.
And when you have a Kundalini rising experience, all the energetics around you, you can feel everything. Your your intuition is really strong. Like until that point, I never really felt with my body. I never really felt the energetics, right? I feel emotion. So for me, energetics was emotion. But now I'm feeling the energetics around my body. Now I know when my husband comes home from work. Now I can hear people's thoughts. Now I know who's calling me the next 10 minutes. So intuition became very, very strong. I remember I'm going to work, right? During the shutdown. And on Wednesdays, we used to have um, case conferences where we are discussing clients' cases, how we can help the client the best as a team. And I remember I'm sitting there and my bottom of my feet are buzzing. My root chakra is boiling. I could feel the energetics around me and I could not pay attention to anything else but what was happening around me. And the whole world is in shutdown. People are losing people. It was so dark, and I felt nothing but me shining. That's it. And
Wow.
I was just me being me. It felt I was in a la la land, but it also makes sense to me because the clients who came to me needed even more support. And sometimes just by me sitting with them with the huge energetic that I was giving out was enough for them. And I could tell it was enough. It was like
Yeah.
a release.
Yeah. That's,
So, mhm.
I have to say, that's such a gift that that all happened the way it did. And, it's making me laugh because 2019, summer of 2019 was when Karsten and I did our first week-long Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat.
Oh my God. Uh-huh.
So, and I'm very familiar with people talking about doing the breath and feeling like they're going to fall off the chair or falling off the chair. And then saying, from then on, I only did the meditation sitting on the floor or on my bed. So, yeah, this is just, it's so interesting, the way all of this fits into my own understanding of things too. So, wow. And I just, yeah. So
It's divine timing, isn't it?
it
Divine
really
timing.
is. And so here you are shining through
Hmm.
this darkness.
Hmm. Like a star, isn't it? Like I
Mhm.
was truly representing my name there. So
Yeah.
to me, that is so magical. It was such a magical time. Mm,
Wow.
mm.
Now, you started by talking about this fellow who you were doing work with and the Jose Silva. So it was really that kind of brought you through this. It
Yeah,
was almost like he was the inspiration, just like you were saying, that people don't realize that
yeah.
you get as much out of that session as your clients do.
Oh, yes. Very. I always start the session with a new client by saying, um, therapy is a collaboration between the client and the therapist. Don't look at me as I have all the answers because I don't. Nobody does. And I'm also not living anybody else's life. So I cannot nor would I ever tell a client what they should do or another person. I have no right to do that because I'm not living that life. So, and seeing how other people, not just clients, but also friends, people are engaged with, when I'm seeing they are able to take steps to better their lives and facing some darkness in relationships, in connections. And then I see them overcoming on the other side. It feels like they crossed the bridge and now it's much better. Is so inspiring for me. It's absolutely inspiring. And
Oh
that
yeah.
helped.
Yeah. And I'm sure that that's part of what gives you the sense of how, why would you want to do the work you do? Because of that,
Mhm.
because it
Yeah.
feeds your soul.
Yes, absolutely. When you know, you know. When you know what is meant for you, you feel it in every single cell in your bone. Even if it has hard parts to it, there is always a following up of reminder. Oh, yeah, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Right. Right.
Absolutely. Hmm.
Exactly. And I think it's interesting because I just had a conversation with a good friend of mine about this whole why process that I've just been through, which is about discovering your life purpose. And so I've been in the last month going through this experience of really looking at my whole life in a very different
Hmm.
way.
Hmm.
And I totally understand what you're saying because when you get it, you're in this place of joy.
Hmm.
And it
Yes.
doesn't mean that every day is perfect and easy. You still have challenges, but you're coming at it from a whole different energy because you know who you are and you know what you're doing.
Hmm. So when you're talking about the different perspective, this is what I call spiritually. I call it, it's when you reach the grace. So you can, what grace means to me is when you can see the light within the dark, when you're experiencing a very difficult, challenging moment, yet you're still able to zoom out and looking at it from a different perspective. When you're not wobbling in that pain so closely, where you feel that this is just a victimhood, when you feel that you're being victimized, but you're able to see, benefits might not be the correct word for it, but just why things are happening. It's when it becomes graceful.
Right. Right. I totally get
Mm.
it. And
Mhm.
I think that idea of grace in that way is how we evolve because
Yeah,
until we can be in that grace, we can't learn
yeah,
through the experience in the same way.
yeah. That's when the looping happens and the repeating of, mm, challenges, repeating of lessons, however we're gonna call it, experiences.
Right. Right.
Which one resonates with you the best, right? Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's well, and you're caught in that
Mhm.
because you can't see it. And until you can see it, you can't escape that.
Yeah. But
Right.
you also want to feel it first, right? You honor the feeling that's happening. And after you felt everything you needed to feel, then you're more able to zoom out and see it from a different perspective. Yeah.
Interesting.
Um,
Yeah.
so,
Okay.
coming back to that first Kundalini rising, so what it does also is not just clear out some traumas and blockages, right? And sometimes these blockages are, I'm calling it as trauma because at the moment when it was created, it feels traumatizing. But a lot of times it's happening because what kind of perspective we had in that moment about the event, like how I interpreted my name when I was a child, right? So I created those blockages. through the experiences. So once that broke through and I started to feel the energetics moving again, at one point, whatever it is that is not serving you is going to fall off. And I started to feel a sense of, I'm not even sure what is the right word here, unsettling, like something is not right, like something is missing,
Mhm. Mhm.
especially when it comes to the work that I was doing in the manner I was doing. Not therapy per se, but everything else that was coming with it that I didn't enjoy, like billing and scheduling and running groups and those kind of stuff. Um, and when it doesn't fit with you anymore, how long you can do something that's not you. And with Kundalini rising is it becomes so unbearable that you have no other choice but to change it. So what happened after this process is I became private. I left the company and I decided I'm not going to do anything that I did not enjoy about therapy. What I enjoy about therapy is the direct sessions with clients. And that was the smallest part I was doing while I was working for the company. And um, when you're just learning to become a therapist, nobody is telling you this. Um, but there is a way to do this. And I just know that there is a way where this can be ignited. I want to be reminded of why I choose this. Becoming private was like that because everything else I didn't like about it, I just outsource it and that's it. So I don't have to do any, not scheduling, not billing, not intakes, not nothing that no groups, nothing. So only I'm logging in, I'm seeing the client and I'll make a note. Even the note I don't really. So um and you starting to feel more authentic about yourself and your experiences, everything that you do. So almost like what you think, what you feel, and what you do is aligned. It's in coherence. Also, Joe Dispenza is talking about coherence a lot, and
Oh, yeah.
it felt
Coherence is a
right.
big deal.
Very much so. It felt right. So much so. And I was continuing my meditation techniques. And here it comes the second one in October 30th, 2022. So 2 years pass by. I am doing everything I wanted to do. I'm enjoying my life. And at one point, um, I was, and of course, with Kundalini rising, you are also, because your intuition is much stronger, you're being guided into places, meeting with people, listening to the right information. And I had a tarot reading and a couple of months prior, maybe 4 months prior to that. And I remember there was one part of this reading where the person said, "You're going to have another shift, a bigger shift. And how do you know the shift is coming? You're going to see the numbers 23, 23." I'm like, okay. And then as soon as I'm hearing that, I forget about it because fine, go about my day and my business. And then 4 months later, I had this huge urge. It was actually ongoing that I wanted to reconnect with nature a lot. I was drawn to it so much. And me and my husband decided we're gonna go on a vacation for just for the weekend. And I'm finally able to go for hiking. And So we went. It took us a couple of months before we decided. So we went, and as we climbing up the mountain, at one point he went in front of me, and I looked down and I saw his shoes. He was wearing a Jordan sneakers, and then Michael Jordan's number was 23. And the back of the shoes has that number. And as he's stepping one foot in front of the other, I'm seeing 23, 23. And I immediately remembered it. I remember the reading. And I was like, oh my God, that was like months ago. So I stopped dead in walking, in hiking, because it was such a realization. My whole body responded to it. And I said to myself, something big is about to happen. I still didn't know the outcome of it or when it's going to happen, but this was the beginning. And then when we went on top of the mountain, I told him, I'm going to do a meditation. So whatever you do. And he always leave me be. So I did the meditation. I stood up, and in my head, I decided, okay, shall we just go back down where we came from, or shall we take further? And all of a sudden, I'm hearing the local Sasquatch people reaching out to me in my mind. It was a mind speak. And I already knew about them, but it is still something at that point that was very woo woo to me. Um, and
Yeah. And I have to stop you for just
yes,
a moment because I need to understand what you mean when you say you hear them or feel
hmm
them
hmm
reaching out to you in mind speak. Are you actually
hmm
hearing voices or are you having
yes,
knowings? What's happening?
yes. No. So I was listening a couple of months prior to that. I was listening the Sierra Sounds. I don't know if you're familiar with it. So the Sierra Sounds are very familiar to people in the Sasquatch community who are talking about this. And I was reading a book. Um, so it's called The Sasquatch Message to Humanity. And there are three books. And one of them, the third book has many writers in it. These are people who um, actually communicate with them, they can communicate with them. And I read this book prior to that. So I was familiar with it, and I was watching YouTube, and I was listening to the Sierra Sound. These are recordings of Sasquatch howling. And so when I was turning around on the top of the mountain and I'm having this thought in my mind, shall I go back where we came from or shall I continue? And what I'm hearing is exactly the Sierra sound towards the place where showing me to continue. And
Right.
it was so loud. I cannot even describe. It was so loud. And I'm looking around because there were many hikers and nobody responded to it. Only I could hear it, nobody else. And to me, it was, okay, I guess we go forward. I didn't see them at that point. I only heard the calling.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a big thing happening.
Yeah, that was a big thing happening. And so we continued. And at one point, we reached on this mountain, we reached a place where it was so gorgeous. And I just wanted to sit down, but my husband was going forward. And I told him, I just want to sit down because I don't want to miss the beauty of this place. And he find a place where we could sit down. And when we said, he called me in, we sat down. I look up and I'm seeing the very typical branches, putting together that is very typical of Sasquatch communication. They are using, wow, I didn't expect that this interview will go into that part. So we were looking at this because Sasquatch often communicate through rocks, through sound, and through sticks. And I looked up, and there was a little stream, and on the other side of the stream, there were these sticks arranged in a very unique way.
Yes. Yes. I have
Uh,
that.
yes. And I was like, okay. And I see people just walking by and nothing. They didn't respond. They didn't even look at it. So I knew that this was for me. First, the Sasquatch yelling, and now that's exactly what I'm seeing. So I decided at the time I'm going to come back, but this time I'm going to come back alone so I can make contact with them. And this is what happened. So I was coming back later on, and the experiences were absolutely amazing. Mm, and then, so we come to October 30th, 2022. I'm coming back to this place and I'm doing another meditation. And then I'm having another rising during the meditation. But this was felt a little bit different. I wasn't having the body movement anymore. It was very electric. It felt like electricity was coming into my body through the rock that I was sitting on.
Mhm.
And of course, initially when it was rising, you feel this heart opening, you're full of love, the tear coming out of your uh, eyes, and it's a very loving experience. And I decided I'm gonna go higher after this because I was just having so much energy after the rising. And I could feel something might be happening because this time, and it was the first time I was actually hearing this, it was full of crickets. It was crickets everywhere sounding. And I even in my mind, I was thinking, that's very weird. I never heard that before. And then right before I decided I'm going higher up, the moment, so I looked down. And the moment I looked down, I saw a white butterfly at the same time bumping into my chest. At the moment when I looked down, and I felt that that was another message. And later on, of course, when the risings are happening, the informations are coming. That was the hey, another change. Butterfly is about transformation, and the white is purity.
Right. So this is your next level of spiritual
Yes,
essentially.
yes, yes,
Wow.
yes.
They're
So
not direct or anything.
that's it. I'm telling you what's coming, but you don't know how it will unfold. Just, I think is fantastic that we don't know because if I had known, I would probably put a break on. But
Yeah.
because we don't know, you just roll with it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. No, I can totally understand that because there would be a part of you going, "Oh, wait, I don't know. Am I ready for this? I don't know. Wait, let me think about
yeah, I don't want the pain. No.
it."
And so then I started to go up, and within an hour, I experienced the deepest dark night of the soul ever. Rising happens, and there is the fall, and a falling is another clearing, right? So initially, it was the solar plexus, very gentle. Uh, this was not at all. And it was so deep. And then, when you have the rising, your connection to your higher self is so strong. And I also believe the Sasquatch people were helping me a lot. And it was such a deep experience. I actually had to cancel all my sessions. And my higher self said, don't worry, it will only last for 3 days. Like the 3 days of darkness. I even told it, yeah, right, 3 days of darkness. And that's exactly what happened. So the rising again happened on the fourth day. So I'm coming home, I'm crying. I cannot even tell my husband what was happening. Because it was such it was an experiential. And then my third eye I was seeing visions. I was seeing my higher self sitting in front of me on my desk. I could see her. Um, and then the downloads were happening, and the Sasquatch people, right? And they told me that we had past life experiences and what was happening in that life and how trauma in that life actually replaying in this life. So it was a very interesting um, process. But how you're able to clear something is by going through it. So
You
it
have to feel it.
it was very similar to an experience people are talking about during near death experiences where they are seeing a life review, but they don't just see the life review through their own experiences, but then they jump into another person and then they see it. That's exactly what was happening, except it wasn't near that. It was the Kundalini was doing it.
It's interesting that you're saying it that way because that is exactly, Elena and I were just talking about this last week. This
Hmm.
same
Mm.
thing that there's there's some correlation here with the near death experience and the awakening experience. This correlation of experiencing the things we were talking about it in terms of soul contracts, right? What you've agreed to
Right,
do and what you're here to do, and
right,
having the experience of how other people have experienced you,
right,
particularly in when you have not been
right.
living up to what you said you came here to do. And that
Mhm.
a lot of times that experience shows you people who you have no actual conscious awareness that you've even caused them some harm or problem
Correct.
because you haven't been on your path. And so what you're seeing is this absence of their
Mhm.
of your attention to them. And you get to experience how you didn't respond to them when they were there and they needed your help and you didn't show up because you were unaware that that was even going on.
Or not just not showing up, but showing up with aggression, with causing harm and pain. Like
Right, right.
those past life experience with the Sasquatch people, it was super traumatizing on both parts.
Right.
So, um, and or also it might have been contracted that way. So now when we are overcome it, it's a whole different. That poison becomes our medicine through
Exactly.
love, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that is, from my way of thinking, that is tied right into the whole process that we're in here as
Mm-hmm.
spiritual beings.
Mm-hmm.
That this is where our responsibility is
Mm-hmm.
is showing up and really being that
Mm-hmm.
person who we said we would be and
Yeah.
doing the healing work. And
Yeah.
I have to say, I think when now, as I think about you talking about your therapy work and how you've shifted it through
Mm-hmm.
these experiences to doing just the one-on-one work, which is what where your juice is, it makes perfect sense because
Mm-hmm.
that is the healing work that changes the planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're each responsible to do it. That's why we can't be a group planet of happy people with a bunch of people involved who have not done their healing work, because if you haven't done your healing work you can't be the
Yeah.
person,
Yeah.
because you have
Yeah.
to move through all that stuff and transform it.
It healing and changing the world always starts with the man in a mirror, right? Like
Absolutely.
within.
Yeah,
Yes.
always within.
Mhm.
And I feel like that message is now resonating around the globe in a way that it never has before, which really excites me.
Yes,
Um, but I'm
absolutely.
digressing from your story, which I didn't want to do, but I that it really moves
Mhm.
me because I see it again, this theme coming up of so your connection to the Sasquatch is not just about you happen to read a book and you happen to walk on a mountain. It's about you had a history,
Yes,
and that
absolutely.
book and that walk on the mountain were the way that you got reconnected to that history.
And I believe all those people who actually have connection with them, they have history as well. They might be not aware of I wasn't aware of it until they told me, right?
Yeah.
So and then how what kind of experiences? I remember I had the broken experience. Why couldn't we have an experience where we were just loving each other? That's it. But again, looking it back, it was all perfect the way it was because whatever I transmuted now and also affecting what was happening in my life in this life, right? From childhood all the way, because patterns repeating doesn't matter if you don't remember it. It's you have in each lifetime, you have the opportunity and chance to overcome it. It was just wonderful to see how they were connected.
Yeah.
Oh, that was that, that was that. And that understanding came with a lot of compassion, the self love, the love to the whole process, the grace with it, right? And
Mhm.
you're really just able to forgive yourself for what you did because all those emotions came when they told me what I did to them. The guilt, the shame comes, so I'm wobbling in that emotion, and then what they did to me again, the anger comes up, the victimhood emotions comes up, and then you wobbling there for a while, and then at one point, okay, I'm tired of this now. And you make a conscious decision, stop this. And that was the moment when I made that decision. Okay, I had enough to be a victim. How long you can be there? The white dragons came in, right? Because the third eye is very active. And all these other mystical, magical being and magical experiences, very experiential. Now, whether it is an energetic, and this is the symbol that represents that energetic, or it's actually correct and valid and true, doesn't matter. It was true to me. And that's how I look at it. It was true to me without the shadow of the doubt. And that's it.
Right.
And then of course later on, so when I was able to transmute that energy, the Kundalini rising again, and then it went on for 3 years straight. I had a lot of spring cleaning within my system during that time. I did nothing but clearing all the traumas you can ever experience. It was very rough. It was rough. And then I started to see through those experiences, you're starting to see, yeah, you were everything. You had lives throughout this whole 3 years. I was shown 17 of my lifetimes. And throughout this whole experience, it was okay. I was the victim, I was the victimizer, I was abuser, I was all, including different races, including different. So again, whether or not I just stepped into that energetic means nothing because it was true for me as energetic. And
And you experienced it as is what I
yeah,
think you're saying, right? So
yeah,
experientially you went through it.
yeah, yes. And it was so transformative. That white butterfly bumping into my chest because it was very heart based and all the walls around my heart I put on because of pain. it was just crumbling. And when you break down those walls, you're more able to let the love in, and you're
Yeah.
also loving yourself in a whole different level.
Yeah.
And then another experience that is so fantastic is the and magical is the time loop experiences. And I know Joe Dispenza was talking about he was talking about a time loop experience like that when he was looking at a fire, and how he was able to go into different timelines. And this Kundalini rising was also right because I'm connecting with one of the past life or a parallel life. I don't know what to call it. It might be both, right? And when I initially asked when it happened to me first time, I asked my higher self, I'm like, what was that? And a word she was using was time war, not time loop, time warp.
Time
What
warp.
whatever that means, I didn't understand it. But again, it's very experiential moment, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and you really question reality then.
And your, I think your reference to Joe Dispenza is the story he tells about seeing himself as a future self
And as a child,
and as a child, right?
and calling
And calling
himself into
himself,
him. So
yeah,
I had an experience like that when I was a child, and this is how I say, childhood experiences were there, but at the time I didn't know what it was. Uh, but after the Kundalini rising, and many of them, those experiences making a lot of sense. So I had a very similar experience when I was a kid. I might have been, I don't know, 13 years old, 12, 11, between those. And I was attending a wedding at the time. And in how this wedding was set up in our small village is that there was a wedding hall for the groom's house and a wedding hall for the bride house. And people were going back and forth, just like the groom and the bride were going back and forth. And then around 1 a.m., the room and by left to the other housing, and this housing became very quiet. And I'm a kid. I am full of energy at 1 a.m. Doesn't matter. And I decided I will go to the other house. And where I was growing up, that little village is um, it doesn't have that much light, so you can see the stars very, very clearly. And as I was walking to the other house, I walked by a little tree that had white flowers. And as I'm walking by, I started to hear something, and it was very, very interesting. I'm like, what is this sound? And the more I zoomed into it, I could tell it's from the right side. And I looked around, and it was a hummingbird. Now, hummingbirds are usually not flying at nighttime, or at least they are not present where nobody ever saw hummingbird where I was coming from. So
and certainly not at 1 o'clock in the morning.
it was absolutely mesmerizing. So I was standing there looking at this hummingbird, 100% mesmerized. And you know the sound their wings made.
Yes, like miniature helicopters.
Yes. And it was a
Amazing sound.
magical moment, magical moment. And then, of course, you're 11, 12, 13, the moment goes and you forget about it. I completely forget about this experience. And then during one of my rising experience, I was looking at back. I was actually balancing the feminine and masculine internally. But at the time, I didn't know. So I was reaching a place what most people call the mm, void. That
Right.
was the first time I experienced the void. It was nothing there. And it, the space went in every direction into infinity. And I had nobody there. And I felt hanging. I didn't know which way was up, which way was down. It was a very weird experience. And then somehow I remembered sacred geometry from the person, Drumvalo Melchizedek, was
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
those three books. Well, the third book is coming out right now. Um, he was talking about the sacred geometry, and he was talking about how when the egg and the sperm cell are meeting, how the soul is actually creating and orienting itself through sacred geometry. And I remember that in the void. And as I'm feeling like tapping, I said, "Oh, okay, you have to do an axis, like an axis." So I draw a line from right to left. And then that's on axis to the right and left. And I started to tackle over it. And I have the feeling that I'm tackling over it. And I remembered, okay, I have to now draw a line from the north to the south because, and as soon as I drew it, the tapping stopped. And then I'm standing in this void. I have nobody, but now I have an axis right to left, north to
Right.
south,
You have
right?
your horizontal and your vertical. You've got your
Right,
cross. You're in.
right. And then I'm hanging there, and I remember this is such a God creation because first you establish the orientations, right? And then the next minute, I'm actually hearing a voice. I'm hearing something. And I didn't made it out what it was. So I'm zooming into the moment your consciousness is focusing on something, it becomes stronger. And I'm starting to hear this sound, this sound. People refer to it as an sound. But
Mm-hmm.
when I'm zoomed into it, it was exactly the same sound as the hummingbird I was seeing. And that's exactly the image popped into my mind. And this was the first time I remembered that moment when I was 11, 12, 13, seeing the hummingbird. That was the sound, the same sound. And I'm remembering this. And there's the Om And the Bible is talking about, and God said, let there be light. And the first one is the sound because it says, and God said.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
that's the vibration, the Om vibration is the same vibration as the wings of the hummingbird. And the next moment, I'm seeing the light exploding out of these axes from my within. And I'm getting the download of I took myself back to the moment of my own creation
Wow.
when I was the egg and a sperm meeting. And now there is actually a video around that shows that moment when the sperm goes into the egg, there is an explosion of light.
Yes, there is.
And that's exactly the moment I went into. It was fascinating. And as I'm having this memory, this childhood memory with the hummingbird, I looked up and behind this whole field, there was woods. And the next moment, I am in the wood looking at myself as a child, looking at this hummingbird, like another person of me.
Right.
And
So you've just gone from birth to this moment.
Yes. Like I created myself and then I'm looking at myself and I'm also feeling that this I might have been a Sasquatch. I don't know, having this because the body felt that way. Amazing experience.
Wow. And
Time
for
warp.
me, I have to say the details of how all this fits together
Mhm.
and how quote unquote real or unreal it is
Mhm.
in terms of the idea of, the rational mind rushing in and wanting to prove everything and line it all up
Right.
is so irrelevant because all of the pieces are so perfectly put together that it
Oh,
defies any of that.
the intelligence behind it is something else. Like my brain cannot create that. It's
No.
something else. Like the intelligence, the universal intelligence.
Hmm.
Mm. Yes.
Right. And it's interesting because um, that's actually what's happening in science right now in
Yes.
and some of these new explorations, and that whether you call it innate intelligence or divine intelligence or
Hmm.
universal intelligence, this
Yeah.
understanding that this moment of conception is not simply a physical moment. There is something else happening. This electricity is consciousness.
Right.
This explosion in this moment is consciousness.
Right. The best word for it. Yes.
Yeah, just fantastic. And to have such a personal experience of that,
Right. Right.
you are one lucky lady.
Thank you. But you have some experiences with hummingbirds too, no?
Yes, it's true. I do. I actually have um, a couple of experiences of my own and a couple of experiences of friends of mine over the
Hmm.
years. Hummingbirds have been a big player in my life. And one of the first experiences was a friend of mine, actually, who um, she was one of the first people I worked with consciously doing this kind of work.
Hmm.
And she told the story of how she grew up in a rather dysfunctional household, like most of us.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
um, but hers was a little more extreme. And in the moments of the extreme dysfunction in her family, which were violent,
Hmm.
um, when she was really little, like 2, 3, 4 years old, she
Hmm.
used to see a hummingbird come and
Hmm.
tap on the window of the house
Wow.
while these things were happening. And it was sort of the message to her of joy is available. It's going to be okay. You're going to be okay.
Wow.
And then when I was doing the, actually, it was in the first weeks after we came home from the 2019
Hmm.
week long advanced Dr. Joe in Portland.
Hmm.
I was doing the walking meditations
Hmm.
and on our property, and we have some acreage here, so we have space to move around. And I actually ended up on my back deck, and I had this whole vision of these forests, this returning of these forests,
Hmm.
and it didn't make any sense logically, right, how this could happen, but I knew it was real, and I knew they could do that. And as I was standing, still with my eyes closed, still in the meditation, I heard
Hmm.
this sound.
Hmm.
I knew immediately what it was.
Hmm.
And so I just stood there and listened and kind of came back to myself as the meditation was ending and opened my eyes. And this hummingbird was just standing in the air in front of me,
Wow. Oh.
third eye, and just didn't move. And I didn't move. And I don't know how long we stood there. It was at least 5 minutes. I mean, we
Hmm.
just stood there
Hmm.
in this trance together, and it was just phenomenal. And then I had another story from another dear friend of mine who has done a lot of work with the shamans who come out of Peru, the Aztec
Right. Right.
shamans. And it was interesting too, because I thought of her when you were talking, when you talked about the solar plexus, because I've studied their teachings as well. And
Mhm.
their teaching is that you have something called the Inca seed, and that
Mhm.
that Inca seed is planted in the solar plexus, and that
Oh,
is where your
wow.
soul resides in the body.
Huh, interesting.
Right. So it was very interesting when you were talking about the star and the solar plexus, and I was like, interesting. There's a
Uh-huh.
correlation of that. Well, she has done a lot of work with these shamans. They come up to the States, and she's also gone down to South America, and they've done a lot of work um, in healing all of these different aspects, right? And
Mhm.
one of the things they did was they went um, in Mexico, the celebration of the Day of the Dead, which is the day after what in the
Right.
United States they call Halloween, is
Right.
a very big deal. And
Mhm.
so one year she traveled with them to Mexico City because there's a huge festival and celebration
Mhm.
for Mother Mary, and there's just a whole thing that happens. And so her whole class, the group that they were all working with that year, went there. And she described to me being in the center of Mexico City, in
Uh-huh.
a huge crowd of people, all of whom are dressed in costume,
Mm.
honoring the Virgin Mary, honoring the Day of the Dead, just it's this huge event going on.
Mhm.
It's pouring down rain, and
Mhm.
their group is standing in a little sort of huddle in the pouring
Mhm.
rain, and a
Mhm.
hummingbird appears in the
Huh.
middle of their group, just standing there.
I'm not even surprised because anytime a huge energy shift is happening, the animals respond. It's innate for them. They are
Yeah,
so sensitive to that. And that was the very first thing I actually noticed during my awakening is the shamanic work often involves the spirit animals,
yeah,
and they were acting so weird or out of the ordinary to me during those times. Um, it's almost like you're getting information through their behavior. They're
yeah.
coming up to you. So,
It's interesting to me too, this whole connection between the shamanic work and the animals and these experiences, because what's occurring to me as I've been listening to you is one of the other things you said was you were so happy you didn't know some of
mhm,
as things were unfolding, right? If you had known, you
yes,
probably wouldn't have had the courage to go forward.
correct.
It occurred to me as part of the process that I've been going through, I've been looking back at my life and realizing these things have been going on my entire life. And one of the things that I've only recently really come to appreciate is that I actually began doing shamanic work in the year that I split up with my first husband.
Mm,
But I didn't know at the time that that's
mhm,
what it was. I had no
mhm,
language for it. I
right,
gradually began to understand that that's what it was.
mhm,
But honestly, nobody said to me, "Oh, this is shamanic work you're doing."
mhm,
Um, I simply was in the experience of having a teacher appear in my life at a moment when I really critically needed somebody to help
mhm,
guide me, because I was now suddenly a single mom with 4 kids and
yes,
in a total world of chaos.
mhm.
And I look back now at it and I realize I was given tools starting then.
Or you always had them, you just remembering them through the pain, right?
Yes, and through the experience of having a teacher show up who can help me
Mhm.
navigate, because I don't think I could have navigated that or understood it.
Right.
And
Right.
there were a lot of things where I was so deeply caught up in the experience that I had no perspective, as you were saying, right? The grace
Yes.
hadn't come yet because I wasn't really understanding the foundation of what it was I was trying to heal yet.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, oh, it's my marriage. It wasn't just my marriage, it was my relationship to myself.
Yes. Yes.
And so that was a much bigger,
Or zooming out. This is how I call it, the zooming out
yeah,
process. Yeah.
yeah.
And
And
it's in, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think that's part and parcel. That's contained in all of what you've been telling. All of these
Mm-hmm.
experiences is this perspective shift, this
Mm-hmm.
continual ability to change and perceive and transform. And it really seems as if that's the foundation of the work of healing.
Yes, I do believe so, because those are the moments when you no longer a victim, you're no longer powerless. Um, and you're also, it comes with the forgiveness, forgiving the self, loving the self. I know it's cliche, but it's not, because experientially it goes way much more deeper than what the words can. And it's funny you're talking about shamanic work, the word itself. I think the brain requires those labels so we can organize it. But um, these work can be natural. We just need something to understand. Because again, if I understanding, right, compassion comes with understanding, but it not always have to be there. It's within us already.
Right. And
Mm,
and I think we exactly when I look at my own experiences, I see that. I mean, I see,
mm,
out of body experiences and things that I had before all of that started. Those were spontaneous. I didn't plan that. I wasn't taking a class on anything. I
right,
wasn't doing a
right,
meditation. you
right,
know,
right.
these things just appeared in my life. And I went, what was that?
So that's when I'm hearing stuff like this, like I make a mental note. That's on my bucket list because out of body experience. Yes, that's next. Kundalini check. Out of body next.
Well, funny because I'm the exact opposite. I want the Kundalini now. I have had the out of body, but I want the. Oh my. Well, I have to
Yes,
tell you, Chilla, we are clearly going to have more conversations
yes,
because
definitely. I have more.
yeah, I think we're just scratching the surface of what all of this is. And I am just thrilled that we can have conversations to really explore what it is, this experience of being human.
Yes.
Because
Mm,
I really believe the further down this road I go, I the more I believe we literally are, we contain the universe.
yes. Yeah,
And
it's part of us. These magical experiences should be normal all the time, like the everyday event. It shouldn't be, yes, magical because it feels good, but it should be normal, like every day, part of our vocabulary, part of our experiences, just like eating and drinking, right?
yeah,
Nourishing our bodies.
yeah, because it really is such a core and central part of who we are as human beings.
Yeah. Yeah. We are remembering those now.
Yeah.
It's, isn't that beautiful?
It's profound. It's
Mhm.
profound to me. And one of the things that I see about it and that strikes me all the time is how much more accessible it seems to be to these younger people coming in now. I
Yes.
mean, whether it's my experience with the Dr. Joe events or my experience
Right.
with other things I've done,
Right.
I'm seeing around me, people in their 20s, 30s, who even in their teens, who are having these experiences. And I'm thinking, yeah, they started in my life when I was in my 30s.
Mhm.
late 20s, early 30s, but I didn't have a framework for them. And there was certainly nobody talking about them. And I think
Mhm.
now it's so
Mhm.
amazing that young people can have these experiences and not just shut them off
Yeah.
or put
Yeah.
them away as I don't want to talk about that because that makes me really weird or strange. There's more and more the acceptance
Mhm.
and the ability for us all to help each
Oh,
other, support each other in allowing this fullness of who we are to come to surface and come out. And that is what transforms the world, I think.
I completely agree. And also the people who paved the road for that, right? So the way showers who didn't mind to be called a woo woo because they knew it will resonate with someone at some point. And it reminds me the part where I was talking about I couldn't do therapy anymore the way I was doing it because it was not matching my authentic true self. It didn't feel right anymore. So when we are opening up about these experiences is also because now it's becoming normalized for us, and I don't care who it resonates with, but I know for some people is going to include a puzzle piece somewhere because we all carry these codes. So um, it's needed and it's helpful. Even
Yeah.
if I'm claimed to be crazy or woo woo, okay, we all move a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Bring on the label if that's what you have to do.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that the more to the point is don't invalidate the human experience.
Hmm.
Recognize that the human experience encompasses so much more than
Yeah.
what we have been programmed in this culture to think of as the human experience. We are so capable
Hmm.
of creation. We literally are creation, and we're creative beings able to create.
It's funny you just said that because just yesterday I was listening to an interview by Matthias De Stefano, and he was talking about Earth and other planets and how the Earth's role is creation. You know, Venus, we are seeing her as love. Venus is love, the planet of
Mm-hmm.
love, but Earth is the planet of creation.
It makes perfect sense to me.
Yes, yes,
Look at it.
yeah,
I mean, everywhere you look on this planet, there's something incredible and amazing happening.
yeah,
And it just keeps coming.
being
There's
created.
new creation happening all the time in nature.
Yes,
I mean, even to the extent lately where they're saying things like, oh, we thought these creatures were extinct and we just found them again. Or, oh, here's some new creatures we didn't even know existed.
yes,
Right?
yes, yes.
This, yes. Oh, that makes so much sense to me. He is very difficult for me to follow, but some things he says make perfect sense.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. And I can't wait to do it again,
Thank
honestly.
you so much for inviting me. This was a pleasure. I went into story that I actually didn't expect. Like I wasn't planning to talk about the Sasquatch people, but it's actually when it's naturally goes that way, it meant to be. So I'm going to trust it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No question. No, it was lovely. And it was wonderful to think about that too and how that fits into it because that's just another aspect of the creation of Earth.
Yes.
They are
Yeah.
so her creation.
Yes.
We
The
are.
ancient people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
And,
Thank you so
oh,
much. Yeah.
before I let you go, I have to point out one more thing that occurred to me when I was listening to you tell that story. You demonstrated telepathy.
Hmm. Yes.
So clearly that's another one of your gifts.
It comes and goes.
Interesting. Yeah, same for me. And
Mhm.
so that's another one I want to turn the dial up on.
And I think we are going into a time frame where that I think Aunt Ann Tucker was talking about telepathy coming on.
Yeah. I think,
Uh,
well, she's not the only one. I think lots of people have talked about
mhm,
it. And I think I certainly am experiencing it more and
mhm.
more.
Yes, more and more.
Particularly experience it with my husband to the point where some days we just laugh and look at each other and say, apparently only one of us needs to be here because
Apparently, only one of you are exist anyway,
that's right.
right?
It looks like there's two of us, but actually,
It's only one.
yeah, except that's not true because we both have so many wonderful things we enjoy that are different. So,
Mhm,
but it
mhm,
is fun to have those experiences, just
mhm.
finishing
Yes.
each other's sentences or those,
Oh, those are beautiful.
yeah.